What are you trying to wrap your very smart brain around right now?
So yeah, there's a lot of focus on the reopening, on the Spring Festival, but the initial reaction is that capacity is running ahead of demand. So if you see for the first few days, we have seen that load factor hasn't come back to 2019 level. Okay. Neither does the ticket prices. So while we have seen a sequential recovery, while we have seen a year-on-year recovery, the expectation was that as soon as things normalizes, the traffic will return, jump back to pre-COVID level. That probably will take its time. I mean, when we speak with some of our contacts in China, what they are saying is that this time probably the travel will be widely spread over the 40 days rather than a sharp peak and sharp trough, given a longer factory holidays, longer early college holidays. But at the same time, many of them are still shying away from traveling until the cases subsides. So the optimism seems to be pushing probably on a full-blown recovery post-Spring Festival.
And I know your team looks at some of these platforms for anecdotal evidence, like Trip.com, for example, bookings, Chunar is another one.
I cover them.
Yeah. So what have you seen? Like, where are they? Well,
yeah, exactly.
Where are they traveling?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah. So I mean, based on that only, so we have seen a recovery in the yield, but if you look at for the first 4 days, your yield is still 10 to 15% lower. And in case of international...
You're talking about aircraft airlines, aren't you?
I'm talking about the passenger tickets, right? And in terms of international, the expectation is that probably it will reach to about 30% level by the end of March. And as the previous speaker was saying, right, initially there was a lot of demand for Japan and Korea, but now like airlines like China Southern is adding more routes to Australia, and probably in a short haul, Thailand will be a beneficiary too.
Parash, when is this actually then, is it a slow kind of move, a reopening play, or is it going to be a mad rush? Because there isn't the capacity, that's the problem as well, that, there's been so much idled. And, where does that also then leave carriers like, let's say, Cathay and Hong Kong as a hub, because they could make hay out of that?
No, sure. So first of all, if you look at the capacity with respect to domestic, I think, as I said, right, capacity is running ahead of demand, because there has been several months in the last 24 months when the domestic capacity was beyond pre-COVID level. So unlike Cathay or unlike SIA, though they don't have to go and park their fleet at Alice Springs in Australia. They just pretty much moved their wide bodies from the international market to the domestic. And that's why actually we are seeing the pressure on the yield. In fact, one of the interesting observations that we highlighted in our last report was that if you look at all the major markets, whether it's the US, India, or Australia, which has a large domestic travel, you have seen that their yields are up anywhere in the range of 20 to 40% versus the same time frame in 2019. But when we look at the China domestic market, it was down about 7% in 2022. It still is lower than 2019 level. So for a full-blown recovery from the aviation profitability perspective, the international travel returns back to a level which will take a lot of wide bodies out of the domestic market, which eventually will form up the yield. And that's what basically they make money from.
But it will be bumpy, won't it? And the thing is here, you look at also how it's not just about, of course, airline and passengers.
Sure.
I mean, cargo is one of the few parts of the aviation industry which has done very well. How is that at the moment reflating, if at all, because it's been done very well? I mean, or deflating because we have other means of transport?
No, absolutely, and that's the center. And when it comes to the airline cargoes, it is far more relevant to players like Cathay, Korean Air, or the Taiwanese airlines. But when it comes to the big three Chinese airlines, at the listed company, their exposure to cargo is pretty small, particularly for Eastern and Air China. So therefore, I think you are seeing pretty much excitement towards the Chinese airlines as they become pretty much a pure play passenger. And for the airlines like Cathay, it's a tussle between can the passenger recovery take care of the cargo slump that we are witnessing perhaps in 2023, especially with the Chinese belly capacity returning back to the market.